Okay, so this week's prompt is regarding a measles outbreak, which occurs and which we have the same number of people or students that actually have measles from the vaccinated group and the same number from the unvaccinated group. And inquiring minds are wanting to know why this happens. Why do we do the vaccinations if you're getting the same number from each group? Just before I start, I think it's important to say, as public health professionals, as clinical professionals, we're privy to a certain degree of information when it comes to things like epidemiology or biochemistry or clinical science that your average person on the street's not going to understand. And I think it is our job, it's our duty as professionals to be able to explain this. It's one of the essential functions of public health, essentially, be able to communicate with the public in an effective way and make them understand how we do things, why we do things. If nothing else, garnishes support. People are going to be less likely to support our endeavors or what we do if they don't have any kind of understanding of it. So that's just an important skill that we have to have as public health professionals. So what I would tell the principal is, we have to consider the number of students that were vaccinated versus the number of students that were unvaccinated. And although I don't have the number in front of me, I'm assuming that more than likely there were maybe 10 students that were unvaccinated. Maybe there were only 5, and all 5 unvaccinated students did end up with measles. And then you have to look at the number of total vaccinated students that came up with measles. So vaccines aren't 100% foolproof. A lot of it is going to depend on the person's particular immune system. And you also have to consider that the vaccines don't always work. And so if there's a measles outbreak, or I should say with not just measles, but any type of outbreak, one of the things that we benefit from is herd immunity. And so you have to have at least 80 to 85% of the group actually vaccinated in order to create this herd immunity. So I would speculate in this particular scenario, maybe that herd immunity number wasn't achieved. But you would explain it to the principal in terms of, well, hey, we had 500 students that were vaccinated. Only 5 of them actually got measles for whatever reason. It didn't work in them, the vaccine. But if you look at the students who did not have the vaccine, who actually came down with measles, it's going to be a much higher percentage. For instance, 5 out of 500 versus 5, I don't know, out of 5, or maybe 5 out of 10, I suspect. A much lower total number that were not vaccinated actually came down with measles. And more than likely, if you're exposed to it and you have not been vaccinated, you're going to come down with it. This is actually a reason why we should vaccinate even more, simply because we're trying to achieve that herd immunity so that people that don't get the vaccination will kind of benefit from our efforts. And so I would just explain that to the principal in those terms. I'd understand his frustration, but you would just try to show the percentages. So you're much more likely to come down with measles once you've been exposed to it if you have not been vaccinated versus coming down with it and having been vaccinated. So I would just put it in those terms. Again, just communicate effectively. It is one of our duties. It's one of the skills that we have to acquire. And if he has any questions, I would invite him to ask more, or we'd be happy to speak to like the PTA or something else, just to make it publicly aware of why this supposed vaccine didn't work in this particular scenario. I explained that wasn't the case, but just kind of break it down so they can understand how things work. So thank you.